What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Phaithful Fanatic Show. We are live here, as always, on Dsm Media's Philadelphia YouTube and Twitter channels. Guys, quick little comment here. If you are watching live on Twitter, if you're watching in replay form on Twitter, we obviously greatly appreciate each and every one of you. But do us a quick favor. Make sure to head on over to the YouTube link specifically. That is the best spot, the only spot to get your thoughts and comments pulled up on the screen here like so. Unfortunately, we still cannot see your comments through Twitter. Still issues with StreamYard until they figure that out. So if you want to be interactive throughout the show, make sure to like and subscribe on this video on the YouTube channel. I'm one half of your host, Dylan Davis. To my left, my faithful co-host, Scotty. The Sixers have got their guy signing Paul George to a 4-year, $212 million max contract. Before we get into it, Scotty, here's what Tim Bontemps had to say about it on ESPN's Get Up this morning.
Adrian summed it up before. The Sixers have told Joel Embiid for a year to be patient and to wait. Mm-hmm. And we're going to go out next summer. We're going to get the best player we can get. And we're going to put the best team around you we possibly can. The Sixers now have the best big three in the NBA. It's really not close. With the three guys they have now, all of whom were all-stars last year, you got a lead guard in Maxey, you got an elite two-way wing in Embiid, or in Paul George. You've got maybe the most dominant big in the league in Joel Embiid. They fit together perfectly. They complement each other in every way on the court. They're versatile. Paul George is an elite shooter. You have two elite shooters now, given spacing around Embiid. They can go out and get any kind of role players that can fit alongside them. They're versatile in a lot of ways. They have the highest ceiling now of any team in the league but the Boston Celtics. And they can go toe-to-toe with the Celtics depending on how healthy these guys are, which is obviously the biggest question. Paul George missed a bunch of time. You mentioned Allen. Joel has missed a lot of time. But if they're healthy in the spring, which obviously is going to be a huge if,
yes,
they are as good as any team in the league. And this isn't like the Phoenix Suns putting this big three together last year that was flawed from the start. This is a group that fits together perfectly. And the Sixers were a team that a year ago didn't really have a chance to win a title. Now they can go into the season saying, we have a legitimate shot to win a title with Paul George, which is why, Alan, you're right. For Philadelphia, given this contract to Paul George right now, they had to do it when they got the opportunity. They took advantage of it.
The best big three in the NBA, and it's not remotely close. It's a great fit, and they can compete with the Boston Celtics. And Scotty, I think that's a great starting point there. And we're going to get into Paul George itself. We're going to get into the other moves that Daryl Morey has made so far. Tyrese Maxey signing a 5-year extension. Kelly Oubre Jr. returning to Philadelphia on a 2-year deal. Andre Drummond coming back, the best big man Joel Embiid's had backing him up since he's been in the league. Eric Gordon on a 1-year deal. We're going to talk about it all, but I think most importantly, I go back to Daryl Morey's comments a couple days ago, talking about how their goal is to be the best team in the NBA, to be the best team in the Eastern Conference. And are they that yet? Obviously, the Boston Celtics are coming off of banner number 18. You can't say that you're better than the Boston Celtics right now today, but you're putting yourself in the conversation. And I think that's all the Sixers can really I think that Sixers fan, that's all we can really ask for right now. So it's an exciting day. Like, I'll just say that, man. Whatever you do Paul George as, if you're worried about the money 4 years from now, if you're worried about the player, we can discuss that throughout today's show. The bottom line is this was a big day as a Philly sports fan, as a Sixers fan, because this doesn't just happen. Okay, the biggest name on the free agent market doesn't just come here every year. Doesn't decide he wants to play with the Sixers. And most importantly, I think to look at, again, whether you agree with it or not, we're not patient as Philly fans, right? Like, it's not one of our better qualities. And Daryl Morey essentially told us, the Sixers essentially told us a year ago, be patient.
Yeah.
And they set out on this goal. They laid out what they were trying to do, and they followed through with it, and it worked out.
Yeah.
And that's the most important thing for me right now, man.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. This was like always the plan. That's why it's hard to understand the people on the other side of the conversation that just don't understand where this came from or why they're doing this. This was always the plan. Paul George was always going to be the most coveted free agent in this free agent class, outside of LeBron becoming like a true free agent. And even then, LeBron is 38. So weigh that out if you're so worried about age, right? So, it is interesting to see some of the negative stuff. But like you said, I think this is a day to keep things positive, man, and understand that this is the biggest free agent signing that you've ever had in Sixers history. Like, regardless of what you think of Paul George, he is a superstar in the NBA. He is a player that a lot of young hoopers around the world love. There's a reason for that because of the way he plays the game. And, you know, looking at this situation, man, this is like the most exciting thing in recent history. I mean, up there with James Harden. I had the same type of feelings when we got James Harden. I won't lie there, but that was a trade. You had to trade assets to get James Harden, which creates another avenue of risk. And so that comes with another level of stress. This is a guy that has chosen to come to Philadelphia a season after James Harden's calling our GM a liar out in public. And I think it just speaks to Daryl Morey, man. It speaks to his work and what he's done. And I'm on the Morey train now, man. I've said it on Twitter. People will think I'm trolling. I'm not trolling. I've sat here patiently and waited. I have not ripped Daryl Morey like some other people have out here in the Philadelphia content and media space. And I did that for a reason, because I knew that there was an opportunity here for him to work his magic. And once again, this was always the plan. We get to the summer, and this is where Morey has to show up. He's showing up, man. He starts by drafting Jared McCain in the draft. He takes a player that they consider top 10 in the draft. Then he moves on. He comes back. He gets the backup center that everybody wanted in Andre Drummond. He goes out. He gets a 38% three-point shooter in Eric Gordon. He signs Kelly Oubre back, who everybody wanted back. He goes out and maxes out Paul George, maxes out Tyrese Maxey. We still have, 5 first-round picks that we can move around and shift around. You have options that you can sign and trade Tobias Harris, Buddy Hield. You can trade Paul Reed. You can trade Ricky Council if you need to. You can trade. You can sign and trade Kenyon Martin Jr. if you need to. There's a lot of different avenues the Sixers can go here to still get even better. Yeah. And that's the thing here. This isn't just Paul George, man. There's some more coming here, and that's what's really exciting about it.
Left to play with as well, man, outside of the sign and trade area. Like, they have that's the thing about working some of these contracts. Like Eric Gordon and Kelly Oubre and Tyrese Maxey's money, they're not. That's not hitting until after the Sixers use the rest of this money. So that's not going into the 62, 64 million, whatever they had coming into this offseason. That's not deducting from that right now. So Morey and them are trying to put together the best roster possible. And they still have they have to make moves, right? Like, that's the thing. Like, we've already, I guess, have been winning free agency. We've been the most active. We've been the busiest team so far. But if you go down the list of who's actually on this roster right now, you can include Ricky Council and Adem Bona, and you're only at like 9 guys. So they have to obviously continue to fill out this roster. So they're not done yet by any stretch of the imagination. Yeah. And there's a lot of nice role players out there that are still available. I know people, Klay Thompson was meeting with the Sixers in a sign and trade possibility. Mavericks or Lakers is probably where Klay's going. Yeah. And then there was one more that's slipping my mind right now, but I'll circle back to it if I can remember.
Meeting with the Sixers, or?
Lowry Markkanen. Windhorst said this morning that it is now believed that Lowry Markkanen will finally be traded. We'll see what that's going to cost, if they can even be players for that. I believe Jalen Smith, signed this morning, 3 years, 27 mil, 9 apiece with the Chicago Bulls.
He would have been the perfect starting power forward, but I'm not going to lose.
I mean, you'd be paying him 9 mil this year. You're paying Andre Drummond 5, and you have a team option on the second year for Drummond. So
you got to fill out the roster.
Well. Yeah, it works out pretty well for the Sixers there. But let's continue to talk about Paul George first and foremost. That's the moneymaker. That's the big piece right here. And again, we can go back and forth. I don't see any comments right now. TR, Gint, Martian, they're all pretty level-headed and excited as we are about this signing. But there are people out there that don't like it. And what I would say to you is, I see a lot of people, Paul George is 35 years old. I know it doesn't sound like that big of a difference. Paul George is 34 and just turned 34 in May. So Paul George has an entire season to play with the Philadelphia 76ers, basically, before he even turns 35, which you all, for some reason, think is like the cutoff age, the limit for NBA players in today's game. He's a 41%, 42% three-point shooter on 8 to 9 attempts per game. He shoots the rock, Scotty. 22, 23 points per game, efficient shooting numbers this past year, played around 70-some games this year, was healthy for them in the postseason when Kawhi wasn't. Five rebounds, 4 assists, a steal per game, good on the defensive end. He is the perfect fit between Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey. Like, we could talk, Larry Markkinen could be the perfect fit. We talked about Mikal Bridges being a perfect fit. Paul George is this. He is an elite catch and shooter, especially from beyond the arc. And that's what you need surrounding Joel Embiid. He's a guy also, Scotty, where people have this, he's getting a max. So people think, well, if you're a max player, you got to be a first or second option. Well, we learned through Tobias Harris that you don't have to be a first or second option to get paid a max contract. Just somewhat live up to that number. And Paul George, as a third option, is the best third option by a fucking mile in this league. Go around any other team. Paul George is the best third option you have. I think he'll thrive in that role. I know there's been some question marks about his personality, about his will to win and coming to Philadelphia with these expectations. Maybe it won't fit. He's not the number 1 or even the number 2 option. But on any given night, he can be the number 1 option if needed to be. He can go and get you 35. He can get you 37. He can knock down 6 or 7 threes on any given night. He can take over a game, man. So it's a home run. We can argue about money. It's not my money. I'm going to be 30 years old by the time Paul George's contract is coming to an end. I'm not worried about that right now. I'm going to live in the moment. It's a perfect fit right now, and I'll worry 4 years from now about that deal.
Yeah, I agree, man. At the end of the day, that's right within Embiid's real window in his prime. So after that, if you don't win a ring with Embiid, it's not going to be a big deal if you're paying Paul George 1 more year for $35 million or whatever. I can't remember the exact 53 million. I had the numbers backwards. It's like 53 million a year. Yeah.
Right, but what's that going to look like 4 years from now? That number might not look all that.
Either way, though, like if it's at the end of Embiid's career as well, like it doesn't even matter. Like we're just going to be going through the motions at that point, anyways, if we don't win a ring. So it's about right now. It's about the next 2 years, I would imagine, specifically here, where you got to go after it and you got to try to win a ring with Embiid in his prime, and then obviously Maxey approaching it. And I do agree. I think at the end of the day, you aren't looking for a guy to come in and be like the leader on your championship team. You just need Embiid to be the leader on the championship team. Right. That's what it was always going to be, no matter who you bring into this team. There's not going to be anybody you bring in that is definitively better than Joel Embiid. He is always going to be the focal point on the roster. So at the end of the day, it's going to live and die with Joel Embiid, but you now have some better insurance there, right? If Embiid is, a little beat up or if he's having a bad night, you have great insurance there. When it comes to
bro. Maxey game 6 struggled, right? He did. He struggled. Instead of Tobias Harris, you have Paul George in that situation. You get what I'm saying? So, on a night where Embiid is struggling with a double or triple team against the Celtics or the Knicks or whoever in the East, on a night that it's not falling for Tyrese Maxey from deep in an elimination situation, you have a guy that can step up to the plate and get you 25 to 30 and shoot well for you and be a plus on the defensive end. Like, he's just the total package for this team, bro. He's the perfect third star, the perfect third person. And I said it to you so many times, and maybe it's not fair. Maybe it's not the right evaluation, because maybe saying this, I'm limiting what Paul George is. Maybe I'm like doing him a disservice by saying this. But if you have Paul George instead of Tobias Harris last year, you do not lose game 2 against the Knicks. You don't lose game 1 against the Knicks when Joel Embiid you beat the New York Knicks last year. Then you play the young, inexperienced Indiana Pacers who dealt with injuries. For my money, I know I'm playing major hypotheticals out here. It's not fair. For my money, you had Paul George on this team last year instead of Tobias Harris. You're in the Eastern Conference Finals. And that's where I think this team can get to easily right now with how they're set up. Maybe that's fool's gold with me. Maybe I'm getting way ahead of myself, because a month ago we were disgusted by this franchise, and it might be silly of me to get this ahead of myself and this excited, but I do think it's that big of a deal, Scotty.
The only thing that I would say, it's never going to be easy to get to the Eastern Conference Finals.
No,
For a
not
team that's
easy.
never been there, it's
I'm
never
just
going to
saying
be
the
easy.
map
But
last year with how
yeah.
Indiana fell to the second round and would have lined up with them. I think last year's road would have been the easiest for them to get there had they had this roster now.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And that is like the simplest point you have to make is just take Tobias out and put Paul George in, insert. And what do you get? And to your point, man, like I don't think that you're like underselling Paul George by any means, but I do think to the perception, because even I was all excited last night. I went back and I watched, Paul George 2024 highlights just last season only, not the highlight reels of Pacers, Thunder, Clippers. No, just Clippers Paul George from 2024. And to see some of the things he was doing, man, I mean, one-on-one, putting guys on their ass with his one-on-one handles, like just the ability. I watched him put Evan Mobley on the floor, one of the league's best defenders. I get it. He's a big man, but still one of the league's longest and best defenders. He puts him on his ass, nails a mid-range jump shot in his mouth. So many buzzer-beating threes last year for the LA Clippers at the end of the buzzer, whether it's the first quarter, halftime, end of game. So many big-time shots he made for the Clippers last season, especially when Kawhi wasn't there with a team with James Harden. He's the guy hitting the shot, right? And then you talk about explosiveness because there's all this talk about his age, man. Go back to last season and look at some of the guys he dunked on last year.
He'll throw it down on you still.
He's throwing down dunks that nobody on our team can do.
Yeah.
That alone, like that type of athleticism and length alone is just something we have not had. And that's why I'm beyond excited, man, for this roster. I'm beyond excited to see how the rest of this offseason goes and how they fill out the roster.
Yeah.
And once again, man, just giving that credit to Daryl Morey as well, man. He had a vision. And he told Joel to be patient. He told Maxey to be patient. He told Sixers fans, be patient. And now look at the situation we're in. You have Tim Bontemps. Doesn't have to be said for me. It's from Tim Bontemps and ESPN who says, we have the highest ceiling outside of Boston right now. Yeah. That's the reality. And one last thing before I throw it back to you, man. I just wanted to comment on the state of Philadelphia sports right now because I feel like we talk about how negative social media really is in like this day and age, but I don't think that Philadelphia sports get here without social media bringing attention to how strong Philadelphia sports fandom is. And you're starting to see players come into the city, man. And that's exciting in itself as well, whether it's the Eagles getting free agents, big time names now, big time guys like AJ Brown wanting to stay here. The Phillies, obviously, Trey Turner, Bryce Harper, Nick Cass, down the line, blah, blah, blah. And then now, of course, the Sixers, once again, making the biggest free agent signing in their history when you're talking about the caliber of player, a player with Paul George's resume. So, you say we suck as a fan base. I say 50-50 on that, Marshawn. Half of our fan base fucking sucks, and half of our fan base is the best fan base on earth. Yeah. And that's the part that's getting recognized here today.
On your free agent stream, I said, man, look, we are we're one of the most knowledgeable fan bases. I truly believe that. You cannot fool us. You cannot get anything by us. Like when Nick Sirianni would try to like slip things, you can't lie to this fan base, right? We're not dummies. But maybe 50% around what you're looking at, Scotty, think they are far too knowledgeable for their own good. And that's the part of the fan base that overreacts, undersells, is constantly Negadelphia, and is constantly in a riot, right? So that's the part that's rough for me. Because look, my whole thing is this: am I getting overly excited for the Sixers? Yes, I am.
Absolutely.
Is it fool's gold? Possible. But I know when it comes to late October and the season tips off, I'm going to analyze game by game fairly. Some moments I'm going to overreact one night. Some moments I'm going to underreact, and we're going to go through the season, and I'm going to look at it through a fair lens with you throughout the year. I'm not going to say that the regular season doesn't matter, and let's just wait till May, because at that point, let's not watch the fucking games then at that point. Let's not care or talk about any of the positives or any of the negatives until they reach the postseason, because then you're saying it doesn't matter. But let's also not overreact if they get off to a hot start and talk about this team winning an NBA title right off the bat. the thing I look at last year, man, I know I said it with Paul George, but I'm even looking at the Drummond signing. I'm looking at Eric Gordon, looking at Kelly coming back on a good deal. And I'm saying to myself, with how last year ended, right? First year exit against a New York team, very, very bad taste in my mouth. Do we forget how good this Sixers team was pre-Joel injury? Yeah. They were on a 60-win pace, brother. 60-win pace before the injury. He gets hurt. There's other injuries, and everything goes to hell after that.
With the James Harden holdout as well, right? Like, I know that, you get that traded kind of excels them, but.
And the multiple trades as well. Marcus Morris being here and not being here. Covington playing, getting hurt. Melton playing, getting hurt. Batum in and out. All these different injuries last year. Joel, the biggest one, obviously. You have Tobias Harris on the books. All this stuff's going on. And they were on a 60-win pace pre-injury. Now, put this roster with a healthy Embiid. I know, again, we're really hoping. That's the bit. Health. Paul George, Joel Embiid, can they get there healthy? But I'm not going to sit here and be a miserable fuck and just say, well, they're never going to be healthy. That's never going to happen. I'm going to watch and hope and see as a fan, man. Because at the end of the day, you and I can do this every morning if we want to. We can do pregame shows. We can analyze. We're fans at the end of the day. It's not my money. It's not your money. It's Sixers ownership's money. If they want to give Paul George $45 million a year, they're going to do so. Why are you so worried about it? They have the most cap space in the league. They still have flexibility. And by the way, you morons who all wanted to punt on last season because of all the money they had opened up, did you not look and recognize who was going to be available to the 76ers this offseason when you were running your mouths at this point last year? Did you not pay attention? That's what that 50% of his fan base loves to do, Scotty. They love to bitch and moan and complain and think they're the smartest people in the goddamn room, but they never have any answers. They want to trade for this person.
Casual take.
They don't know how or who to give up.
It's a casual side of the fan base. People see this big news and then all of a sudden they take their attention off the other teams that they mostly focus on in Philly sports, and then they direct it towards the Sixers and act like they know what they're talking about. And that's honestly the way I view it, man. Like, people were so out on the Sixers. You probably didn't watch them much last year, even, with Embiid out. Like, you don't even really know what's going on as far as some of the other players that are coming back to this team as well. It's funny in that sense, right? But you look at the Paul George signing, we talk about Embiid's health, and I get it. Paul George is on the same side of things there as well with the health concerns, whatever the case may be. But the idea here is that you help them both by pairing them together. You have Tyrese Maxey as well. Main thing here, though, taking the weight off of Embiid's shoulders. And I think that's a big thing, especially in the regular season. Like we talked about earlier in the offseason, like right when this offseason started, one of the goals needed to be not making Embiid not worry about having to score 34, 35, or be in MVP conversations during the regular season. That no longer matters. He's already won an MVP. He's already led the league in scoring. He's already done this and that. Now it's about strictly winning and managing his body and his health throughout the season. That's all his focus, and that's all really the Sixers' focus should be. I mean, this is a team. You put the right role players in, right? There's still a few holes to fill in the roster, but this is going to be a playoff team. This is going to be a top 4 seed in the Eastern Conference with this group of guys. And so to that point, it then just becomes managing guys' health. And that's what I want to see from the Sixers this year. I don't need to see Embiid 50-point games against San Antonio Spurs. I'm good on that. I'm good on Embiid 50-point games against the Pistons and shit. Like, it doesn't need to happen. It's great. It was fun in the moment. But now we are on to bigger and better things. We've kind of gradually built ourselves up to this point, to this moment. With all the little things we've celebrated over the years, like getting Jimmy Butler at the deadline and Tobias Harris and, getting James Harden and, getting to the second round and really taking the Celtics to the wire. And, in Embiid's MVP season, what another accomplishment. Maxey, the franchise. These are all little minuscule accomplishments. Most improved player, Maxey All-Star. This is not the goal of the team. The goal of the team is to win the NBA championship. And it's now realistic. We can take our goggles off. We could take everything out of the picture as far as like other motivations, championship, getting to the postseason healthy. And during the journey, we just have to appreciate the process of these guys coming together and learning how to play with each other the right way. But like you said earlier, man,
I'm so glad you brought
perfect fit. It's the perfect fit. When you
so
talk about these three guys, this big three specifically, similar to like a D Wade and LeBron and Bosh, how that big three was kind of perfect, right? You have a big man.
No one's saying they're the big three in Miami. Don't clip us.
No, no, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that because I'll take LeBron at that time and D Wade over Maxey and Embiid right now. Yeah. But I will say, just like the idea, guard, forward, big man, right? You don't see the big threes play out like that as much anymore. Perfect example, the Phoenix Suns, right? You have guard, and forward. And it doesn't look great, especially when you say shooting guard, forward. So it is interesting. The one thing I'm interested to see, and we just maxed out Tyrese Maxey too, so congrats to him. Which love the deal and the kind of details in there. No options, all guaranteed, very straightforward. 5 years of Tyrese Maxey. We're gonna see what he can do as a playmaker this year, unless they add like a Tyus Jones or some other like really good facilitator out there on the market. Tyrese Maxey is going to have to learn and develop in that facet of the game, which I 100% think.
As of right now, Tyrese Maxey remains the point guard. Like he is number one, right?
Yeah.
I do want to point out, like I am drinking on the show. This looks really bad on a Monday morning.
Enjoy yourself.
I'm still on vacation. Don't crush me. I go to the shore for a week.
It's July 4th week. I mean, it's Independence.
I go to the shore for a week. That's where I was before, and then I come up to Poconos with the family. But then after this, I'm done. I'm cooked for the summer. And me and Scotty will get into some things back at home, man. But just wanted to point that out. I am up the mount. I am in the mountains, so yeah, maybe Jason might be working down by the stream or some shit right now. But perfect fit. He chose us, and you gave up nothing for him. I do want to share this. I don't normally shout this man out, but Elliot Short Parks put this out there a couple hours ago, and it just kind of exemplifies like how Scotty and I feel towards some people in the fan base and how they view the game of basketball. Because one team in the Eastern Conference had to give up an extreme haul for player X, while we give up nothing for player Y. They'll tell you that player X pushes that team to championship caliber, but they'll tell you that our player Y puts us in a stranglehold in the future and won't change it. Here is the numbers from last year between Paul George and Mikal Bridges. I don't know if you could tell the little color difference within those two, where it's highlighted and not. Mikal Bridges played 8 more games. In the regular season, Paul George made the playoffs, so they probably played around the same amount of games last year, and he averaged 0.1 more assists than Paul George did last year. Age 33, Paul George. He's so old. He's not the same anymore. Age 33, Paul George. As a second or third option next to Kawhi Leonard, James Harden, Russell Westbrook, all these guys, average this, while a dude on a shit team who could stand out and do whatever he wanted in an 82-game stretch averaged that. The Knicks had to trade their future to get this kid. We signed Paul George in free agency. But they will tell you that we are no closer to a championship. We're actually being pushed back further, and the Knicks are the second best team in the East. Do you have news? What's happening?
Tobias Harris, 2 years, 52 million with the Detroit Pistons.
All right, because Ginn had said it, and I was looking for it, and I couldn't find the tweet. But yeah. Tobias no longer our problem. No longer a sign and trade option.
Million.
I was wondering about that. Yeah, bro. 26. So what is PG making this year for us? Like this first year, I know it gets higher.
49.7, I believe, is the number I saw.
All right. Well, I will tell you that Paul George is $23 million more worth it than Tobias Harris. I will tell you that.
I'm glad you said that, because I think that is also another point that's kind of getting, like, we've said it in the show already, like several times, how much of an upgrade Paul George is to Tobias Harris. But like, that's like underselling it.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to say.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Like we're underselling what Paul George can bring to this team.
Yeah,
And
like the difference.
Fit, man, and we talked about it earlier, and it is a perfect fit. But I'm just so excited. And again, knock on wood, that we actually get to see these two healthy for a majority of the year, and especially come playoff time.
Yeah,
but it goes both ways, man. We're excited to see Joel Embiid get this guy, right? To get this fit, get this wing that can shoot it from deep at any point, can create on his own. We're excited to see how this opens up things for Joel, especially come playoff time. But Paul George has also never played with a big like Joel Embiid. Like there's a difference, man. There's a difference playing next to another forward or another playmaker like James Harden that can do certain things on the perimeter with you. There's a difference in a 7-footer that can average 34 a night down on the block in the mid-range on the other side of the floor as you see you and get you the ball, can space things out for you because he can stretch the floor as well. Yeah. Paul George getting to play with that is a difference-making moment as well, dude.
Absolutely. Absolutely, man. And I'm just imagining, as you like kind of spoke that out, I'm imagining Paul George with the ball in his hands, Joel Embiid doing a little bit of pick and roll action, and Tyrese Maxey just standing over on the opposite wing, wide open from three. Like, these are the things I'm imagining. Like Eric Gordon over in the opposite corner, Tyrese Maxey in the opposite wing, and then whoever, power forward rebounder floating around in the paint box to box area, and Joel Embiid and Paul George just running a beautiful pick and roll where you just have a multitude of options. And the thing, man, I just thought of fucking Nick Nurse, like Nick Nurse, like Nick Nurse, right? Like this is him getting the right guys that he can experiment with now. A lot of guys that bring versatility, and man, I'm just getting excited here, brother. Like I'm like just thinking about Paul George. He's what 6'8", 6'9", like at the forward spot, 6'8", right? Officially,
right? We're always so concerned because remember when King got drafted, everyone was so concerned. How are we going to guard Tatum and Brown? We're an undersized backcourt. Here comes 6'8", 6'9", wing defending Paul George. Oh, shit, there's one answer. There's one guy for you. Like, come on, man. This is why you got to let things play out. I was scrolling through Twitter here. I did see the 3-minute video of Paul George abusing defenders. He does drop Evan Mobley, like you said, but the first clip is him dropping Ant and then finishing through DPOY Rudy Gobert last year, not 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Ant wasn't even, but last year doing that to people. Oh, but he's so old, he can't help. Oh my God.
Let me ask you this.
Yeah, go ahead.
Who do you think Paul George benefits more between Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey? Like, who do you think is going to benefit most by his presence out of those two?
Man. I mean, I guess I'm going to stick with Joel because I just think the dynamic, again, between big and wing that can just stretch the floor so much for each other and do different things. But I agree. Like, we all sit here, and the focal point obviously is Joel. But you watch the ascension of Tyrese Maxey last year. We're obviously hoping that he still continues to climb in that trajectory. Now you throw in a guy like Paul George who can play with the ball, can take some pressure off of Tyrese Maxey with the ball in his hands, especially late in games at times, but is very good off the ball. And now it allows Tyrese to become a better playmaker. I think his assist numbers will only continue to go up. Like that's another thing, man. Like Tyrese Maxey, although he's been flip-flopped with a lot of teammates so far, and I know we have thoughts on James Harden and everything at this point, but Tyrese Maxey has somewhat been blessed to be around a lot of generational type of basketball minds and players to continue to grow.
Yeah, no, it's a great point, man, and kind of brings us to Tyrese Maxey. Averaged 26 points, like you said, last year, 6 assists, 1.7 turnovers. Yeah, well deserved. Obviously, we knew that was coming. He was patient for us, which we got to thank him for that. So you bring Maxey, obviously he was coming back, but then you get Kelly Oubre as well last night, man, and I think that's a whole other element. Once again, like he obviously took a pay cut to stay with the Sixers, so that's one thing that you have to look at. Because he gets like $8 million a year. It was 2 years, $16 million, something like that.
16.3. Yeah, he's one of the exceptions that will be signed after we continue to fill out the rest of the roster. Same thing with Eric Gordon.
To get him back as well, man, is just like icing on the cake. So now you have those two wings, right? Like everybody was talking about the Knicks, and rightfully so. They maybe even a little bit better of a pairing defensively for those two, OG and Mikal Bridges. But you do have two lengthy wings, two athletic wings that will be able to compete with Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown once you have to play the Celtics ultimately. And the Knicks too, right? Like Mikal Bridges and OG, they are there. Like you're gonna have to play against them as well. So you have a great person there. And once again, who else are you gonna add to this roster, man?
Listen, the Maxey extension is obviously well deserved. To go from pick 21 and blossom into what he has. Dealing with Doc Rivers the first 2 years of his career, getting a new head coach in his first year, and turning into an all-star under Nick Nurse, right? And continue to climb upward. But the Kelly thing, did Kelly? I'm assuming Kelly took a hometown discount to come back. We talked about the bag Kelly Oubre Jr. could have got out there this year after the year he had last year. And he's going to play on one of the MLEs this year for about $8 million. You know what I mean?
What did Najee Marshall get from the Mavs? Was that $9 million a year? Like 27? Was he? No, that was Jalen Smith. That was 27, right?
Najee Marshall's right around the same deal, maybe 9 or 10 a year.
The same deal. Yeah, it's funny. Marshawn said that your mic was like going a little funky there. I don't know what that was. Might have been a connection thing, but you're good now. Right. So Oubre last season, 15 points, 5 rebounds per game, 1.5 assists, so on and so forth. Just wanted to look at Najee Marshall because that was like the big guy. You know, even some Sixers fans really wanted him on the Sixers. So last year, Najee Marshall, 7.1 points per game, 3 rebounds per game, 2 assists per game. So he gets $9 million on the market. Let's just say $9 million. I think it was the 27. That would be weird for both of them to get the same money.
It might be 3 years for 30
million. 10 mil. Yeah. So it is a wing. Makes a little bit of sense. But 10 mil, making more than Kelly Oubre, who averaged 15 and 5 last year. Right. Just looking at the basic numbers, you know, that doesn't tell the whole story, but it tells a lot of it. And, I think you get Kelly Oubre for great value there.
So as of right now, we obviously have to continue to fill out the rest of the roster, bro. But is Kelly in your starting lineup right now?
Somebody said that was
kind of has to be, right? No.
Somebody said that was like the idea that was mentioned in the Woj tweet. I don't remember. I haven't read it in a while, but I did see on Twitter people were mentioning that it was kind of hinted in the Woj thread of the deal that that he wants, or that the idea is that he will start on the roster. So I'm open to that. I'm fine with it. I think when you have Maxey and Paul George, who are elite 3-point shooters, Kelly Oubre is more of an average 3-point shooter. I think that's fine to mix in with them. And I would rather have him start than Eric Gordon, right? Like Eric Gordon, great shooter coming off the bench. Absolutely. Not my starting shooting guard by any means.
At this point, you have Eric Gordon, and we're going to get to that deal and the Drummond deal as well shortly. But you have those two coming off the bench. We're assuming Jared McCain's going to have at least somewhat of a role. So that's 3 guys coming off your bench. We still need another starter and like 3 or 4 more bench pieces, bro. So like that's what I'm saying. Like they have work to continue to add to this roster, and that's the exciting part. Like they've added so much, and they've gotten us this excited already. But we know it's not done. It's not like we just have to sit on our hands and watch X, Y, and Z fall off the board now, and we have to just wait for the season to start. We have the next, today and the coming days to see what Daryl continues to add.
I was just reading the comments here. Yeah, prediction on who Daryl signs today. Precious. Paul reading a pick for Finney Smith. DeAnthony Melton back.
The issue with now is I'm just not the money guy, right? I don't know. I think we have between $9 and $10 million left before we would go over that first apron or whatever. And when you have, because like we said, Gordon is going to go on a vet minimum. I believe Kelly's going to go on a mid-level exception. I think we have another mid-level exception to give out and maybe another vet minimum. I'm not sure how many we have.
Yeah, I was actually I'm looking at Keith Smith's page right now, just looking for, because I did see somewhere the Sixers have the 6th most available cap space in the NBA. I think it was roughly $9 million after the Paul George deal. So basically there was let me find the tweet that I like just so I can read it word for word because it is a lot. But basically it was explaining that there are multiple avenues they could look to trade guys, like sign and trade guys like Kenyon Martin Jr., Buddy Hield, different options there. Let me look at my likes here on Twitter. Where are we at here?
Bro, I really can't believe Tobias Harris got 26 a year.
Yeah, I did want to comment on that
so,
Hartenstein deal as well.
Yeah,
him going to the Oklahoma City, man. That's addition by subtraction for the Sixers. Him leaving the Eastern Conference, leaving the Knicks specifically, is great. So
two things that are very depressing here, right? I saw Sean Barnard just reiterated it, and I saw another one last night. This is the first time in Joel's career where he's going to play without Jahlil Okafor or Tobias Harris on his roster. I just want that thrown out there. Okay. Secondly, Tobias Harris gets 26 a year and Kelly Oubre Jr. gets 8. You know what I mean? Like, that's fucking wild. That is wild to me.
That is literally insane. Honestly, I honestly didn't think of it that way, man. But
it's like I know someone commented earlier. Is Tobias Harris the Kirk Cousins of the NBA? Like he is the Sam Bradford of the NBA. Like he just continues to rack up bags, dude.
Yeah, I mean that's a funny comparison, man. That is probably the closest comparison. Why can I not find this tweet?
In the midst of all this like thievery that the Sixers have been robbed of with bad contracts the last couple of years, we focused heavily on Tobias, right? In the midst of all this, Al Horford was the biggest thief to ever run through Philadelphia. And
our other biggest signing ever.
Like
unfucking real.
That's crazy. But while you're looking for that, man, I do just want to say, so the Eric Gordon signing, just to touch on that, because I know there were some comments earlier. I saw it on Twitter all this. Like,
how about the overreaction to that?
First the joke on the negative side, and the Houston connections, and it is a guy that's been rumored to have been traded here or come here for the last 4 or 5 years now. But it's a good signing. Like I could care less about the Houston thing. Eric Gordon hasn't been in Houston since like James Harden left the first time, right? Like Eric Gordon has bounced around, obviously with Phoenix.
Yeah, he's been on
so it's not like he was just with Houston this past year or two. Secondly, he signed for the minimum, and he's a 39% three-point shooter that will pull from the fucking parking lot if you need him to. That's all I need coming off the bench. Yeah,
that's the thing. It's a minimum contract
coming off the bench. I will gladly take a low double-digit scorer coming off the bench that can shoot from 3, man. Gladly for this team.
No, I completely agree, man. I think there's just way too much that was made over that. Like either way, like regardless. But I do think unless you're looking at it as a positive, you're overreacting. It's a minimum contract. I saw some people say they would rather like give the minimum contract to like a young up and coming with potential. Like for what, man? Like it's a vet minimum. That's the point.
Up and coming with potential, but those same people don't think Jared McCain can play for the Sixers if they're trying to compete.
Great point. I saw somebody say that they should have signed Terquavius Smith back instead of Eric Gordon. That's what I saw. Yeah, you're right, though. Jared McCain. We have Jared McCain haters in the Sixers fan base because of his height and his age. He's too young to impact the team, right? Have an impact in this season.
Let me get this straight. And I know I keep going off on this select group of people, but these same people, these same morons that are saying we need to maximize Joel Embiid, but don't like the Paul George signing and don't like this, but like this. These same people legitimately would want to go younger at that spot or bring up Turk Smith or do whatever. but then don't believe in Jared McCain. I'm so
A
confused.
first round pick, right?
I'm
Like
so confused.
it's goofy, man. It really is. I'm not gonna waste any more time here trying to find this article, but I did find Bobby Marks at least tweet who kind of laid out a pretty clear picture of it. Doesn't get as in depth with like the trade options, but basically you have obviously Tyrese Maxey, Kelly Oubre, Paul George, Joel Embiid, Eric Gordon, Jared McCain, Ricky Council, and Andre Drummond on the roster, as well as Dsm Bona. Your key free agent, it has listed here Nick Batum, right? And then you can add on the list Buddy Hield, so on and so forth. Obviously, Nick Batum reported not coming back. Projected cap room left $9 million. That includes Paul Reed. So this room includes Paul Reed waived. So I guess that means like they would have to waive.
I did see that. He did clarify he's doing those numbers assuming Paul Reed will not be on the team, and he saves them an extra $8 million or something like that.
Interesting. And maybe I'm curious if it's better to trade him or waive him in that sense. But then it says we do have the exceptions, so a second round exception and then a veteran minimum exception. But I do think, like you said earlier, I think Oubre's taken that exception, which is why it's
Gordon's going there. And Gordon's
the cap
going
space. Yeah, and I think you get multiple vet minimums.
You
right?
do, you do.
As many as you need after you're like hard capped, I guess. But Kyle Lowry will probably be, I would imagine, unless they find something better. Kyle Lowry would probably be that other guy on a vet minimum.
Outside of those, they still have between 9 and 10 mil to work with, correct?
Yeah.
From this.
And trades, once again, like there's ways of including like a Kenyon Martin. Basically, what they would have to do, they said Kenyon Martin Jr. is like the one that makes the most sense as far as a sign and trade. But basically, you would give him a 3-year deal, inflate his salary on the first year, and then that helps you create like a 9 to 10 million extra. So you're looking at it depends where you want to go, and maybe that's a question that I'll throw to you is like, what would you want to see them do? Like spend most of that salary on one player that maybe perfects the starting lineup? Or do you spend that salary on multiple players so you can kind of build your depth here?
It's just so tough. It's so tough because I just don't know what the market is for certain players. Like I said, Tobias Harris just got 26 mil while Kelly Oubre Jr. gets a mid-level exception for about 8 mil a year. You know, what is Gary Trent Jr. worth on the market? What is Caleb Martin worth on the market? Are those guys we could bring in for the 7, 8, 9 mil? Or are they someone we could sign for I don't know. So I'm just not cap savvy, market savvy like that. But one of those guys, how I feel about Gary Trent. Like if you add Gary Trent Jr. to the roster Morey's putting together right now, my head's going to fucking explode.
Yeah.
Like I'm going to be overjoyed. So
how do you feel about like a Dorial Finney-Smith? That's a guy that's been floated around. Like he could be that fifth starter there. I'm just taking a look at like the Pistons roster because they just seem like.
By the way, real quick,
you should be able to get leftovers. What'd you say though?
I said if you were wondering, the 76ers are tied for the second best odds to win the NBA championship at Bet Parks right now.
With who? Who's the other team?
It doesn't say, but Bet Parks quote tweeted it and said, and those odds are plus 800, by the way.
Interesting. So Celtics probably heavy favorite, and then two teams right behind them. Right. Maybe a Western Conference team. Maybe the.
All right, I'll bite, Nate. I'll bite. Why? Throw it in the comments. Why should the Sixers get rid of the team? I'll bite. I'm in a good mood.
Why the negativity too, though?
It's okay.
Yeah, I want to know too, but like, this is what you're thinking of this morning.
Yeah, I'll bite. Why should they get rid of Jared McCain as soon as possible? And if you're going to say because he dances on TikTok or paints his nails, don't bother commenting, and you can see your way out of the chat.
Yeah, because I mean that's just a baseless comment. I mean, if anything, man, you hope that Jared McCain can make an impact his first year, and maybe he can be like that shooter off the bench, right? That elite shooter off the bench that can space the floor whenever you're subbing some guys out. But like,
and you mean on a rookie deal as well, like that. You know what I mean?
Right, like, what's the point, man? Like, man. It's people just love to be unhappy, dude. Like, I get it. Like we've said on the show several times, like, painting my nails, I'm never gonna do that. Like, it's just not me.
I'm not that guy, but I don't care that someone else does it.
Like, I don't care if he dances, dude.
That kid that you think's quirky or soft for painting his nails and doing TikTok dances, he's got more money from TikTok flowing in his bank account than Nate probably does commenting about it. Secondly, that same kid, that quirky kid that paints his nails that you think of, is going to scream in your motherfucking face when he buries a 3 with 45 seconds to put your team away.
I think part of that
twisted with who he is.
Part of the problem with McCain, I think, is like the distraction from TikTok. But like, I think that's just people that don't understand how hard it is to be content creators on like a daily basis. Like this young man has to be so organized and like on such a set schedule to like get TikToks and dances out each and every day, but then also train hard enough to make it to the fucking NBA. To train hard enough to make it to the fucking NBA. You're not trading McCain just because you need a point guard. I don't know if that's what he means there. Like, no, he's not your starting point guard.
He's saying at Duke he averaged 1.9 assists his freshman year. That's not what.
No. Okay. From that standpoint, it's a little bit more fair of an argument. We were going at him for the wrong reason here, but Jared McCain ultimately is not going to be a point guard. He's going to be an off-ball combo guard.
He's never going to be a point guard for the Sixers. No.
Yeah, he's not going to be. Definitely not going to be the starting point guard for the Philadelphia
Phillies. To space the floor and knock down threes and be scrappy on the boards and defensively.
Yeah.
That's all he's brought here to do, especially year one. Like, again, here's what I don't get. All right, Nate, so hear me out. If we allow Tyrese Maxey might be a fucking anomaly, but if we allow Tyrese Maxey to grow into what he's become, we didn't know what Tyrese Maxey was going to be at age 33 or at pick 21, I'm trying to say. And he shot under 30% from three-point land his freshman year at Kentucky. Tyrese Maxey came into his Sixers uniform with drastic shooting concerns and turned into the player he is today.
Yeah.
So let's see, right? Because again, I'll keep reiterating, it's so fun and nice to have Paul George. It's so nice to have cap space and bring in new players.
Yeah.
It feels like Christmas morning, right? All these new toys that we get to see in a Sixers uniform. But at some point along the way, you have to start to build through the draft as well. You cannot just continue to buy new toys each and every year and hope it pans out at some point. You have to build a little bit of a future for when Joel Embiid's no longer here and no longer playing, and even past that.
Yeah. And I agree with everything you said.
I have him listed as a point guard because that was his position. He's not going to play point guard here.
Yeah.
He's just not going to. He might have the ball.
Honestly,
but
I think that whoever made the depth chart, I don't know if that's what they're like trying to list him as.
Also,
he's not a point guard.
Depth charts are always fucked up across.
Yeah, he did not play point guard at Duke. Jeremy Roach was the starting point guard. Tyrese Proctor was a starting point guard. Jared McCain was never the starting point guard at Duke. Right. So not his role. He did say in his opening press conference he was working on becoming a better ball handler, a better one-on-one type of scorer.
You also have to realize when it comes to college statistics, again, there are some inflated, like a guy like Zach Edey, who's as big as he is, able to score at the rim and get those rebounds. There are guys that can average 24 and 12 like that. But if a guy averages 15 points per game in college, it's pretty good, right? Like you got to realize, like Duke probably averaged like what? Under 80 points per game last year, 70 points per game, somewhere around that. So there's not a ton of balls going through the hoop each and every night. Guys are scoring and so guys are doing this. So there's not a lot of assist totals to go around as well.
And I think when you look at I think when you look at fair, Nate, fair. We're all in the same boat there.
Join the happy box for the time being.
When you look at it from the standpoint, like let's just look at like Dalton Connect, for example, versus Jared McCain, because those guys were back-to-back. That's who part of the fan base wanted in the draft. Dalton Connect, 23 years old, average 23, 24-ish points last year for Tennessee. Jared McCain at the 15-point mark for Duke last year as a freshman, 18-year-old. Like what does he look like in his sophomore season at Duke? Is he a 20-point per game scorer? He might be. So, like, that's the thing. We're counting on him to develop into that next stage going into the NBA. And at the end of the day, I think what you need to look at it as, Nate, and to anybody else out there, like thinking like point guard Jared McCain, like, no. Think of him like a Seth Curry, like maximum as far as having the ball in his hands. Like pick and roll, maneuvering, looking for his own shot or getting the ball to Joel Embiid. But even to that extent, it's going to be a little bit lesser at first. He's not going to be a ball handler. He's going to be a spot up guy. He's going to be in the corners. He's going to be out on the wings waiting for his opportunity. And he's going to get plenty of them with guys like Embiid, Paul George, and Tyrese Maxey. So that is the fun part of it.
Saying the name got the smile of the day out of him.
I'm telling you, man. I like from a basketball perspective, like Paul George has one of like the prettiest games in the league, man. We've talked about how bad we wanted like one of those prototypical wings. Man, just go watch the highlights.
Yeah, I can't reiterate it enough, dog. We're not sending you Indiana Pacer Paul George highlights. We're not sending you 2019 Oklahoma City Paul George highlights. I'm telling you to go watch Paul George play last year, age 33 to 34. Watch him play. Watch him be one of the only guys healthy enough to go out there and ball out. And well, I mean, he was inconsistent in the playoffs. Don't get me wrong, but he had a 33 point per game. He had a 20-some point per game in the playoffs. It wasn't a perfect fit with James Harden and them in LA. And let's just see what he looks like between these two. And let's just knock on wood. Let's everybody stay healthy for as long as possible, please.
And let's be real about the Clippers as well. Like everybody talks about lack of success, but Kawhi was injured during the playoffs last year. Like that is a thing. Like that happened. Like
also the other thing is I see as well. Like Clippers fans are all over the timeline and Sixers fans mentions and comments talking about like what to get ready for disappointment in the postseason. Like, dog, you just re-signed a guy who we already lived through in James Harden, who does nothing but come up short in the postseason, and you're going to lecture up on Paul George possibly letting us down in the future?
It's incredible. Yeah, it's incredible to like not be able to like look in the mirror like that. It is. It's incredible. But I wanted to ask you a question. I don't know how much longer you want to be on here, but maybe looking at this situation with the Sixers, like when you look at the free agency and what else they can do, what do you think is a bigger priority? Like adding like that, like prototypical playmaking point guard, like a Tyus Jones, just an example, but a player like that, a facilitator. Or do you think it's more important to add like a rebounding power forward, like a guy that can help in that facet, that can start in between Embiid and Paul George? Like, what do you think is more important?
I'm not too worried about the power forward position at the moment. I think when you bring size like Paul George and Kelly Oubre, you add another guy that's 6'8", 6'9", 6'10" in that area that can play with 7'1" Joel Embiid. I think you have enough size at that point. I think that guard. Now, the question is, do you want a prototypical point guard like you mentioned, like TR is saying with Tyus Jones? Maxey gets to play more off ball as a 2 guard potentially this year? Or are you looking for more of a combo guard that can run an offense, can handle the rock, but can also play off ball, can shoot, and him and Tyrese Maxey can share those duties? I don't know that I have a preference, man, because I was fine seeing point guard Maxey last year, averaging between 5 and 6 assists. I think adding Paul George, those numbers will climb just around 6.5, I think, as an average this year for him. But so maybe a combo guard instead. But I don't know. Like, if they go out and get Tyus Jones, I'm going to be ecstatic. Like I am. Like I think also like that is Tyus Jones is just a guy that can come in and I think run any offense in the league, especially given the star power around him that would be in Philly. I think that would just be such a seamless, easy fit for that point guard. So I'm good.
Tyus Jones is interesting, right? He was sitting at $14.5 million salary last season. So does he's 28 going on 29. Does he get more than that or does he get less? Like, does his value go up
Probably,
or
bro. You
down?
got to think he's like right around his prime. Like he's maybe like a
Right.
year or two past when that started, but he's 28 years old for a point guard. Is
So it's probably that's probably beat. Fultz is interesting.
I'm not against the player. I just think coming full circle, it would just be like just
Yeah.
how and why did we get here the way we got here now?
Yeah, I feel that. It's like kind of the same thing with Ben Simmons, right? Like to a little bit lesser of an extent, because I think obviously Markelle Fultz has been in the league the last couple of seasons actually playing.
Yeah.
But just like obviously Ben Simmons, it sounds like the Ben Simmons that was on the Sixers like 3 years ago.
Yeah.
At power forward sounds perfect. Like it sounds great. But like you said, it's just going to be such like a whirlwind. It would almost bring negative attention, you feel like. You know what I mean? To a sense. But maybe a little bit less with Markelle Fultz.
But you do have to realize that's not Morey's problem. That wasn't Morey's fault. What happened, the fallout, the pick itself was not Daryl Morey. So that was a long time ago. If he decides it's a good fit, then possibly. But by the way, Nate, Kane, nice to see you, bro. Love the profile picture. If you guys are new to the channel, do us a quick favor. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. It's YouTube. It's free, obviously. And like you guys can see, it's the only and best spot to get your comments pulled up. John as well. Appreciate you, dude. I don't want to put a small lineup out there. I'd rather get a power forward than a guard. It's fair. If we do get a guard, Chris Dunn, not a bad idea. Not a bad idea. But yeah, if you do go kind of forward-esque, I don't hate what Martian's saying. You know, if the Nets are having a fire sale after giving up McHale, if you go out and get Cam Johnson and or DFS, if you can trade with Atlanta now that they moved on from DeJounte Murray, if you can get Hunter or listen, if they can get Bogey, that's not a big lineup, but if you can get Bogey as the 2 guard for this team, wow. So anything like that, but we appreciate.
Cam Johnson's interesting. I feel like his contract's too big, but maybe I don't know.
Right, I don't know. And again, I don't know how it works with trades because I did see like if the Sixers make a sign and trade, they can somehow eat some of the money coming in. I don't even know how it works.
Yeah.
But again, I'm not the best with cap. Here's my understanding of it. So Paul George will be on the books, right? The Maxey extension, the Eric Gordon vet minimum, and the Kelly Oubre Jr. mid-level exception are not on the books yet. Those are going to come following using the rest of the cap space. I believe we have 9 to 10 million left before they hit the tax or that first apron this year, which they can go over, I believe, but knowing this.
That's the other side of it, man. With the new CBA, they basically tampering going into the first apron, second apron, so whatever. The penalties are a lot more harsh because the idea is to kind of even out the NBA, right? Like teams like the Warriors who like to spend go into the tax. They're going to get penalized heavily for doing that. And then the teams that are down lower, but way below their cap, they're also going to get penalized for not spending their money too. So the goal is to kind of even out the NBA and get teams closer to that middle ground. And so, everything you said is correct there, but it's on Josh Harris to an extent. Like, how much are you willing to pay in penalties to make this team the way that Daryl Morey wants it? Because obviously, Lauri Markkanen, you do have the ammo. Like, do you have the flexibility cap wise to sign Lauri Markkanen? I know he's on like an $18 million deal for this season alone, but after that, he's going to need an extension as well.
I have no idea how it works, but
I have no idea.
To Nate's point, yes, like that's the fun part of it. I'll let them figure out the money. I'll let them worry about that. What's left, what's available, what the market says the guys are worth. But if you just go down the roster, right? You have Joel, you have Tyrese, you have PG, you have Drummond, who we have to talk about that in a second too. Still, Drummond is 4, Eric Gordon is 5. Why am I drawing a blank on? Oh, Kelly Oubre Jr. is 6. If you want to count Ricky Council, that's 7. If you want to count Jared McCain, that's 8. That's 8 guys. Maybe a Dembona makes the roster. That's 9 max if you're counting a Dembona. And we're factoring in Jared McCain and Ricky Council, who might not really have huge roles this year. Yeah, they have a roster to continue to fill out still. So they're going to be active. This is something else I saw. If they do trade Paul Reed or sign and trade somebody, however the math works, they're able to eat up to a certain point of that player's contract where that doesn't affect their whole cap space.
Yeah.
Lonnie Walker is a name that people have thrown out there who I would not mind coming to Philly either. A first and a swap for Jonathan Kuminga, Scotty. I mean,
I don't think the Warriors do it, but
I don't think the Warriors would do that, but I'm in. I don't know.
Maybe Moses Moody. Maybe that's a more realistic target from the Warriors, but yeah, I mean that would be a dream for Jonathan Kuminga. He's so young, but it is interesting. Like the vet minimum, would we be willing to take like a Rocco on a vet minimum, like to fill out the roster, a Kyle Lowry on the vet minimum to fill out the roster?
I'm going to be honest.
Morris,
I think
another guy,
Lowry almost a lock to be back in Philadelphia.
I think so too. On the vet minimum, why not? Like just to give yourself the depth.
A few minutes ago, Kyle Neubeck said that he still cannot confirm the Nico Batum report.
Interesting.
So I mean, it could.
That's your starter right there, in my opinion. Yeah. Like, yeah. I think I would be fine, like between Kelly Oubre, Nico Batum, and Paul George.
Oh, well, this was actually 2 hours ago, so we would have heard more. But anyway, the tweet says Kyle Neubeck says he still cannot confirm the Batum report. Says the Sixers definitely still have interest in bringing him back, but we might have to wait until after the Olympics to get a final answer.
Contemplating retirement, so that makes sense. It's maybe more of a decision whether Batum returns to the NBA rather than the decision like to return to the Sixers. Like I don't think he's going to go play anywhere else at this point.
Let me ask you, man, before we get to hold on, sorry, I was reading a tweet. Reggie Bullock is set to meet with the Suns, Nuggets, Clippers, and Sixers. Is Reggie Bullock a fit?
I'd be cool with that for depth for sure.
Let me ask you a quick question though before we get to the Andre Drummond point. When it comes to Paul George, are you shocked at how, I mean, we talk about tampering, and again, I know they could have started after 6 p.m., but like it happened so easily. I was expecting more of a fight. Like Orlando basically bowed out very quickly by signing KCP, which means they knew or spoke with PG or his agent and said this is where he's going or leaning. They bowed out quickly, could not offer the max anymore. They were our really only competition to offer max. Clippers were standing pat on 3 years, and not only did it didn't go down to the waning minutes. They put out a statement saying they're moving on, like at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So, like at that point, I knew I went to bed. I woke up, saw it at like 2-3 o'clock in the morning that he signed here, but I mean, it just happened easily. I was expecting a little more, I don't know, anxiety for the signing.
I don't know. I think the media kind of makes you feel that way in a sense, because if you look at it from like the standpoint of like how it actually played out, it does make sense. I mean, the Sixers were one of few teams with the actual cap space to give him a max contract. The Sixers, like the Clippers weren't willing to do deals, obviously, in the West Coast to put Paul George on another team over there, because I'm telling you, if Kuminga and whatever was offered for Paul George, you take that 100%. If that's offered to you, they did not do that. So they obviously did not want to work with anybody in the Western Conference. So that eliminates half the league right there. And then Orlando and Philly were really the only teams in the Eastern Conference that had the actual cap space to make it happen. So it really just came down to Paul George. Media had kind of like shaped us to think that maybe Paul George would take a discount to stay in LA. Not the case. He wanted to get his bag, and he ultimately comes over to the Sixers. I think also the Daryl Morey situation with Harden, it kind of like, makes you question things a little bit as well.
Yeah,
but
you thought it was going to poison the well. But, if PG didn't like the fit with Harden, some of the comments he made on his podcast about playing the right way and styles and stuff like that, he wanted out of there. He's not going to listen to maybe whatever was said that way. Listen, he wore the vintage AI shirt into the meeting, so he had to have had his mind made. You know what I mean? Even before the Sixers made their pitch.
I was listening to 97.5 this morning. There was a caller. Take it with a grain of salt. We don't know how authentic these callers are and how much truth they're telling. But he says he has a big time lawyer friend in New York. He has a buddy up there who works like closely with CAA, I think is the agency for Kelly Oubre and Paul George. And basically his buddy told him on Friday that the Paul George deal was basically done. His buddy from the CAA, Paul George's agency that his agent comes from, right? Like I said, take it with a grain of salt, right? Tampering, all of that stuff in thought here. But why wouldn't we kind of believe that in a sense? You know what I mean? The way this played out, the rumors, the reports that came out over the weekend officially from guys like Chris Haynes, it all pointed to Paul George to Philly. So it could have very well been done.
I mean, and if you're Daryl, bro, you push all your chips in on this.
Yeah. Like, so, you know, at the end of the day, like, it could be as simple as like Embiid talking to Paul George at the finals, right? Like, hey, we have the cap space. Daryl Morey I know the agent wants to, or the GM wants to sign you. Come on over. Like, and you don't have to agree to it right there, right? You don't have to sign the dotted line, but he can say, I would definitely be down for that if shit doesn't work out with the Clippers. And then, right? Like, it's stuff like that that kind of gets lost. But to your point, man, once again, how easily it was to get Paul George to come to, from optics standpoint, such a shitty organization is why I think it has to be so exciting, man. Like, we could talk shit on the Pistons and whoever else, the Wizards, so on and so forth, but one of these teams that are considered a contender each and every year for the last couple years that Embiid's been in his prime, we are a pretty shitty organization from the outside view, at least since at least up until Daryl Morey got here, which once again, Morey gang, like I'm starting it. I'm on it. And I'm gonna troll motherfuckers, man, because this is Morey has fixed this roster. He has fixed our situation to where we now have a decent upper hand in the NBA, man. We have a little bit of control. We kind of just demolished the Clippers in a sense. We took their first round picks. We took their second best player. And now the picks get better that we got from them by taking their second best player from them. Like, it is just a masterclass. Then you talk about the Tyrese Maxey deal, the Mike Muscala pick, right? Like, all of it, man. Like, getting Al Horford off the books, getting DeAnthony Melton, getting Danny Green off the book. Like, just keeping it going, man. The only mistake you can argue is keeping Tobias Harris. Glad you chimed in, Slim, right on time. Because Tobias Harris and not trading him was the only mistake that it feels like Daryl Morey has made. Letting Isaiah Joe go, that would be the other one. But
you also added Doc Rivers, who just
would
not play him. But anyway, I know we're gonna end up wrapping up here shortly, man. Let's kind of end it with a little bit of the Sixers' first move. Let's bring Andre Drummond back on a 2-year, $10 million deal, 5 apiece. I believe it's a team option for the second year. So if Andre Drummond isn't to the liking, isn't what he was a couple years ago, be pre-Harden trade for Philly, coming off the bench, they can move on from that $5 million the second year and regather themselves there. But this is another, in my opinion, home run signing. It's cheap. Again, if it works out, you have him for 2 years on the cheap, and it is the best backup big Joel Embiid has ever had. Let's just go back. We can go back to every playoff situation. Let's just go back a few short months ago to the New York Knicks 6-game series loss. Besides injuries, besides stuff like that, we have all the issues. What was the absolute killer? What was the one thing this team struggled with more so than anything else against the New York Knicks? Rebounding, and specifically minutes without Joel Embiid, which has been the story his entire postseason career. It's not fair, but that's what it continued again last year. You had an undersized, non-shooting power forward playing your backup center position. That's what you had. Or you had to go small. And you got tortured by multiple big bodies, multiple 7-footers. It's what cost you game 1. It's what cost you game 2. And it's what cost you down the stretch of game 3 when you retook the lead and Joel had to go out for a rest at the end of the third quarter. That's what happened. And you not only add Paul George, you not only add 3-point shooting all around with some of these signings, you solved the backup center position. This is not DeAndre Jordan. This is not Dwight Howard playing next to Ben Simmons when they can't match together on the court. This is not Montrezl Harrell. This is 7-foot Andre Drummond, one of the best and most efficient rebounders in NBA history, who did it at a great clip for a bad Chicago Bulls team again last year. He doesn't have to start. He gets to come off the bench and play behind the best center in the league. Yes, the best center in the league. I'll continue to put my eggs in that basket. And Daryl Morey solves that on the cheap as well. Because, again, we didn't know what – let's be honest, man. We wanted him at the trade deadline. We didn't know what his market would be. I didn't know if Andre Drummond was going to get double digits. I didn't know if he'd get 10, 11 million a year. You know, like we said, Jalen Smith gets 9. A couple other wings get 10, 11, 12. I don't know what Andre Drummond's market was. You get him for $5 million.
Yeah. Yeah. And, Chicago Bulls once again fumbled the bag. They could have traded him
for multiple
draft picks, whatever.
Yeah.
So it is funny, man. It is funny how it worked out. It was like kind of another no-brainer. Like people were predicting Eric Gordon. Andre Drummond was that other like no-brainer signing and able to get it done, man. It shows how eager he was to kind of get back to Philly as well. And it's the best place he's been, right? Like it's outside of Detroit in those first couple of years. He had his best role, I feel like, as a backup.
I think that's a great point, man. And then he went to Chicago after here. You added in Andre Drummond, and he didn't get to play for us. And then he was with the Nets. He didn't get to play for us when in the playoffs, in the bigger, more important moments. Like he played on a winning basketball team the first half of a season.
Yeah.
So that obviously changes guys' attitudes and mindsets when you're playing for something bigger than money or just stats or whatever. You're playing to try to win a championship, and that's what he can bring off the bench for this team.
Absolutely. And, it's funny, man. Marshawn said, Slim, get your man. He's glazing hard. At the end of the day, there it goes. Okay, it was a little lagging on my end. At the end of the day, Daryl Morey has kind of like followed our plan in a sense. Like I'm not trying to toot my own horn because there's a lot of people that had this plan because it was the obvious plan in a sense. But he's done everything that we've asked so far. Like, it's not even over yet, but it's amazing to think about, man. Like everything that outside of Eric Gordon, I think we didn't really discuss that on here, although it was discussed by other Sixers fans. But bringing Kelly Oubre back, bringing Andre Drummond back into the fold, signing Paul George. I mean, you just can't ask for anything more. And yeah, I'm going to be out here glazing, Marshawn, because shout out to my man, Beard of Knowledge, Phil. That's my guy. But he's been trolling Daryl Morey hard, unnecessarily.
I was not a fan of D. Morey.
For months on months on months. And all I've asked Phil was to just give Morey the time that he needs to get things done. Give him an opportunity to get things done. And he's made it happen on the first day of free agency here. So, yeah, I'm fitting the glaze because we are in a much better world away from, Ben Simmons and Tobias Harris and like Matisse Thybulle, like non-shooting motherfuckers, like non-offensive oriented guys. Like we're going to play
or
beautiful basketball, like shooting and like I don't know, like 3-pointer, like high score, like it's just gonna be beautiful, shooters, man.
Or shooters on defensively and have to get subbed out at the end of games. Like it's always been one way or another. There's never a lot of two-way players going on.
It's insane, man. It is. And you just like to your point, you think about that Knicks series, and if you could have just had somebody to battle in there. Yeah, I'm fitting the glaze. I'm fitting the glaze. It's the Morey high, man. D Moore gang, whatever you want to call it. It all applies here for Daryl Morey because he put out that fucking picture in front of Crumble Cookie, and that is the one time I did criticize him. But hey, he came out and he did what I wanted him to do. So I couldn't be happier with Daryl Morey right now.
I agree.
And I think it's even better that Paul George just shits on James Harden calling Daryl Morey a liar. Yeah. Like the best tweet I've seen so far is it's in quotations, James Harden, Daryl Morey is a liar, and Paul George in quotations to you. Like, because I got the max deal and the right guy got the max deal. And that's why I'm so happy, man. Because we could have folded and gave James Harden a max last offseason and been in a different space. So
no, I agree, dude. And We have all day to continue for our screen times to just continue to go up because I'm checking Twitter every 2 minutes,
Waiting for more, man.
But that is the thing, right? Because like all this happens overnight. It's like, how busy are they going to be today? Will it take,
Right.
will it happen this week? Will it happen over the coming weeks? I remember
Daryl
Kelly
Morey getting a
didn't
nap.
sign with us till like the end of the
Yeah.
summer last year.
Yeah.
So you have options like that. But to be fair, if you look around the league, outside of what the Sixers have done, not a lot's going on. And
Yeah.
if people were waiting for that Paul George domino to fall for a lot of other transactions to start to take place. Now that it has at 3:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, it's now 11 a.m. Maybe things will start to pick up. And at that point, if things do start to pick up, you have to expect the Sixers to continue to be in play today and tomorrow, because you can't just sit on your hands and take the scraps of what's left. You do have a roster to continue to fill out. Like, as excited as I am for what they've done, the Paul George signing, the Maxey extension, and these role players, the backup big, I'm super, super happy about all of it.
Yeah. No,
it ain't enough because you don't have the rest of your roster filled out yet. Yeah. So that's the exciting part, where more has to come.
And I think to your point there, I think that is where Daryl Morey, like, all jokes aside, all glazing, trolling, all of that aside, that is where Daryl Morey makes his true impact, because that's where you really have to get down into the nitty gritty of working the numbers, making things fit.
Correct.
So that, in reality, the Paul George stuff is great.
Now it's Howie time.
Drummond's obvious.
Now it's Howie time.
Yeah, now it's lit. Now you're talking Howie level stuff right now, where you are approaching that cap, right? The salary cap there. So you're gonna have to maneuver and make some moves that are unexpected, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. We've made the expected moves. It's time to make some unexpected ones.
Again, before we get going here, I do see over 80 people live right now with us. If you are following us, if you're watching on Twitter, obviously we appreciate you guys. If you're trying to comment, we cannot see it. We don't get your comments through the StreamYard link. So do us a favor, make sure to check out the YouTube link specifically. It is posted on my Twitter. Scotty retweeted it. The DSM account retweeted it. Click that link, subscribe, and it's the best spot you can get your comments pulled up here with us each and every show. Before we wrap up, man, the Phillies, just real quick, got to touch on it. Things are going to get tough, man. Bryce 10-day, Kyle 10-day, still no JT, Walker IL, which was a good thing, but now Turnbull's on the IL, so they're down a starter technically at the moment. A lot of injuries going the Phillies' way right now. They go down 6-2 in a 4-game set to the Marlins. They were already losing the series 2-1 at home. You lose yesterday. You lose 3 out of 4 at home to Miami Marlins. No matter how injured you are, that sucks, especially a Nola start, a Wheeler start, and a Rangers start over those 4 games, which would be all the losses. Of course, they win the Sanchez one. But the bats come alive. The birthday boy in Trey Turner gives them a 2-run RBI single late in the game yesterday. And the Phillies win 7-6. They split the series. 500, brother. Yeah. Stay afloat. Yeah. Braves lost again. Stay afloat. Play around 500 baseball, as close to 500 as you can get until around the All-Star break, when Bryce and Kyle can return. At that point, JT will be close to returning as well. Just stay afloat for the time being. You talked about that July schedule. Gets really difficult. Let's try to get halfway through this month, a little less than halfway through this month, and get this team back to full strength as close as possible.
It's like you said, they're gonna have to take advantage of those your aces starts, right? Like, it can't go like this series. You have to take advantage. Correct. When Nola, when Ranger, when Wheeler are on the mound, you got to win those games, and that's just the way it's going to be.
But yesterday, man, yesterday was so gutsy, dude. Yeah, not only the comeback win, 4 or 5 errors they committed in the field. Yeah. Ranger having one of them. I believe they were like 3 for 17 with runners in scoring position or something crazy, and you still pulled out the win. Yeah. That's humongous. I don't care who it's against. I don't care if it's the Marlins, the White Sox. I do not care. It's
got to weather the storm, man.
Comeback win. You get 500 in the series with these injuries, and that's all you can ask for at the moment. But again, like
Philly right now,
the brand is strong. It's growing, and it's growing because of you guys as well. So do us a favor, 80 of you, go subscribe to the YouTube channel. If all of you guys went over and subscribe right now, we'd be over 200. And I'll just throw this out there. Paul George just signed with the Sixers. Daryl Morey's having a hell of an offseason. The Eagles are coming up soon. The Phillies are trying to make a World Series run. You guys get us to 200 plus subscribers on the new channel. We're a little less than a year built here right now. You guys get us to 200. Me and Scotty will do the biggest giveaway we've ever done. Okay, we've tried to do some before. people subscribe, they unsubscribe. It gets a little tough. Get us to 200, comment along, follow us on Twitter. We'll get your information, and we'll do a little contest. We'll do a little giveaway.
A Paul George jersey.
Maybe everything, brother. You want a Cooper DeJean t-shirt or jersey? You want a Paul George t-shirt or jersey? You want a Bryce Harper jersey for the playoff run? Maybe we'll go 3 for 3 with it. You want a Matvei Michkov t-shirt or jersey?
Let's go.
Fly guys to the channel, and we'll put something together for all of you guys. That's a promise on me and Scotty come the end of the summer. But help us get there. We appreciate each and every one of you. For myself, for Scotty, for DSM. Have a great rest of your day. We will be back on Wednesday talking hopefully more Sixer signings, more roster improvements.
That's July 3rd. No, I'm jumping the gun. My bad.
Knicks. Yeah, we got the day. July 3rd.
We good.
We'll be back between 9:30 and 10 a.m. We'll see what time we get set up here. But we appreciate each and every one of you. Have a great rest of your Monday.
Peace, everybody. See you Wednesday.